you learn how to keep yourself safe. And that all comes from, like you're saying, like watch the language of the dog, watch what you're doing. If every time you go in there, a dog's trying to attack you, that might be a you problem, especially if nobody else is having that problem.
But can you get the dog to a much better spot where they respond in a much different way? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot more time than if it was just learned behavior that happened over time that was advantageous to the dog that you kind of undid. It's going to take significantly longer for that dog to relearn, and they're eventually going to hit a cap, and that's where management comes into play.
Welcome to Police Canine Radio. Rich, what's going on?
Well, luckily for me, I get to hijack this whole podcast this time and go deep into the pet side. So
well, you say pet side, but here's the bottom line: is cops have dogs, and whether they don't know they're a pet, they don't know they're a working dog, whatever. Like, and I just in hanging out with you and seeing what you guys do on the pet side, like we get dogs that are motivated, right?
Right.
They've got high drive to interact with the toy. You know, they've got all these other things that their temperament is. We get to select them. We spend a lot of money on them. The pet world ain't like that, brother.
No, and we don't get to pick. And we talk about this all the time. Like when I was just a canine handler, I kind of thought I knew something about dogs, but I had a very willing participant next to me. Like, dude, if you give me 2 pieces of kibble, like I'll climb to the top of that building, right? Like a tug, what? I'll spin and I'll jump and I'll back up and I'll do all those things. And just the opportunity to go down range and apprehend somebody and have the best time of my life as a dog. Like I'm here to work with you because I'm so motivated to do it. And then you get in the doodle that hasn't come out from underneath the dining room table for 6 months because it's petrified because, genetics probably are questionable and it's lived half of its life in a shelter and you're trying to communicate with that dog. It was humbling for me, for sure. And we were talking about this before we started recording. There wasn't a lot of information out when I started down the pet dog process available online, right? Like now there's a lot more information and that's going to lead us to our next guest.
And I mean, they're a police dog by day, but a lot of these dogs,
they're just dogs.
And like we know, like some of these dogs are in the house. You guys know who you are, and they're laying on the couch, and then they're interacting with the family, and that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But all this stuff applies.
Yeah, and we talk about that all the time because I'll call you or you'll call me, and we'll have a problem. I'll have a problem with a pet dog, or you'll have a problem with a police dog, and lo and behold, the answer is the same because they're dogs.
Agreed.
So on to our guest, and this is one of the. This one's really exciting for me because we have about 9 trainers in our building. We have several offsite trainers that work for us, and there's some people that they have to watch. They don't get a choice. If you don't follow these people, if you don't watch their training, if you don't look at their information, then you don't get to work for us. Michael Ellis is one of those, and we talked to Michael Ellis in our last conversation, and the other one is Stephanie Vichinsky with Method Canine. And for me, this is really important because I'm 6'4", I weigh about 250 pounds. If a dog tries to fight with me, I can give up a pretty good fight back. So I don't have to be the best trainer. Most of my trainers are 5'3". They weigh 100 and I'm not going to piss anybody off. They weigh less than me. They have to be substantially better at timing and communication than I do because they don't get to fight these dogs. And I'm not going to ask Stephanie's height and weight, but I know she's tiny, and I know she works with some massive, aggressive, reactive dogs. And one of the things that makes it important for us to have our trainers watch what she does is she has to be right a lot more often than I have to be right because of her size. And she's not going out there fighting a nasty cane corso, although I'm sure you have. That's not how the day has to start. So Stephanie, welcome to the podcast. We're really happy that you were able to come on. Again, this is a big one for me because I really like the work that you're doing and how much you share that information and how much information you've made available online and just even in some of your posts on social media. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. So humbling to hear, compliments like that. That's, puts me in my place.
Can you give us a quick rundown? It doesn't have to be quick. Can you give us a rundown on what got you into dogs in general? And then we'll talk about what got you to where you're at right now.
Sure. I probably have a very similar story to lots of people who are into dogs, but it was a passion from the very beginning. My mom used to say to me, like, nothing would scare me as a kid. My mom grew up watching X-Files and horror movies. Like, that was playing in our house 24/7. And none of it ruffled any feathers with me. But if the dog died, if the dog died, like I was leaving the room. I was done with the show, the movie, or whatever. So from a very young age, I pretended to be a dog. My poor parents were probably embarrassed out of their minds, but they didn't squash any of that. So I knew I wanted to work with animals, because I had such a love for them. And so when I, graduated high school, I come from a poor family, poor part of town. The concept of dog training didn't even exist to me. And you're also thinking, people don't realize I'm 38 years old. So this was, before, dog training was just this huge thing that everybody was doing. So I didn't see that. And the concept of paying a dog trainer to train your dog was ridiculous to me. Like, we didn't take our dogs to the vet. They didn't get fancy dog food. They ate scraps from the table, and they lived to be 16 years old. We never cut their nails. Like, they barked in the backyard. Like, that was their life. So it was a whole different avenue. So when I graduated, I wanted to go into veterinary school, which I did. And I was doing that for a few years, and I started really volunteering at the local clinics in my area and stuff like that. And one day I saw this dog get hit by a car, just mangled to pieces, brought in, and I was like, I do not have the heart for this, because it was so difficult. So at that point in time, I was like, you know what? I don't think I could watch that every day. So I went a whole different avenue. I went back to school for totally different things. I went for English and philosophy and writing and all these other things, because I was like, well, clearly animals isn't it. Adopted a dog at the Humane Society, a dog that was going to be all mine. It wasn't going to be a family dog. It was going to be all mine. It was going to be my first, like, true personal dog. And I said, I want to take you everywhere. Like, I don't want you to live the life that our dogs did growing up, where you were just a backyard dog. I want to take you everywhere. So I brought home this beautiful little chocolate lab, and she was a mess. She dragged me around on leash. She was so anxious, so much separation anxiety and all this stuff that every dog owner goes through. But I didn't know how to deal with any of it. I was like, I don't know. We just let the dogs do whatever they wanted when I was growing up. And now I have this dog that I'm trying to take places, and that's not working. So I remember Googling, how do you get your dog to walk nicely on a leash? And YouTube videos popped up. And this was when YouTube was still kind of new. So there wasn't a tremendous amount on there, but there was videos popping up, and there was people who were saying words like, I'm a professional dog trainer, which couldn't even compute in my mind. And I was like, you make money training dogs? And ever since I even learned that was a possibility, it was like nose to the grindstone, nonstop studying dog training, pushing forward, because I knew once I heard it, that's the avenue for me, like, where I'm helping dogs, but I'm not watching them getting squashed by cars and stuff like that. Very, very different way of helping. And it was just a passion ever since then.
Hey, we'd like to welcome our new sponsor and old friend, Black Jack's Leather. Black Jack's is the true definition of a mom and pop shop. They're out in Illinois. Richard, the owner, is somebody that we work extensively with. They make leather leashes, leather collars, biothane. We get a ton of biothane from them. Biothane 3-foot, 6-foot, 20-foot, 30-foot leashes, all kinds of colors. I know everybody that's listening to the podcast is into the tactical with the greens and the coyotes and the blacks. But if you have a pet dog at home and you want your dog to be a little flashy, we love their long line biothane leashes. There's blues, there's pinks, there's oranges, yellows, all kinds of colors. Add a little flash to your program. And they really care about canine handlers. They're big on making sure that the equipment that they sell is safe for the dog and safe for the handler, and exactly what you're asking for. Black Jack's Leather, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. We have a handful of trainers now that came from the, they were in some kind of animal science. They were wanting to be veterinarians. Actually, I just stole one from one of our local vets who is a vet tech, and she was in surgery, and she kind of stumbled, into our path the same way that she kind of got tired of seeing dogs at their worst, right? Like, yeah. and having an idea of like what could make life easier for these dogs coming into the vet's office, but not having the authority to say, hey, this is what you should do to prepare your dog for the vet office. And then seeing these dogs,
Yeah.
like you said, that are sick, injured, several dogs. Like she's
Yeah.
like, so much of our job is just killing dogs, you know, like whether it was, you know, at the end of their life or behavioral or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, and she was just like,
I don't think I ever would have made it there.
I think the
I
suicide
ever
rate,
made it.
I think the suicide rate in the veterinarian world is higher than veterans now.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
one of the highest. I can only imagine.
Yeah. There's
yeah.
dentist. I think they're at the top.
Yeah. And I think it's what happens is, you know, they go through all this education, right, to essentially become a doctor. And then you
Yeah.
have people come in that are really like, they don't have any money. There's no
Yeah.
real insurance. I mean, there's insurance, but it's not like medical insurance. And there's no big kickbacks from pharmacies, all this stuff, right? And then they're stuck with seeing dogs, you know, broken and sick and dying. And then owners
Yeah.
that really don't have a handle on behavior. So all the while they're wanting to save lives and they're getting bit. You know, the dogs are just nasty and the owners are mad at the vet who just wants to, you know, they came into this kind of probably disillusioned a little bit, thought it was just going to be about saving dogs. And what a tough world. Like we love our vets and we try
Nothing
to,
but respect for vets.
yeah, I think it's
all
rough.
vets, both sides. I have nothing but respect for them because boy, do they walk a hard walk.
So you're in northern Idaho, right? Are you in the,
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half from the Canadian border, so we're pretty north.
and we were talking to your husband a little bit before you came on and he definitely doesn't sound like he's from there. Are you guys transplants?
No, I'm local. He's from Brooklyn, New York, but he's been out here for probably 25, 30 years.
Oh, but he loves the accent because he's not.
Oh,
losing.
well, wait till you see him get a little angry. Then it's really thick. That's the mild version.
So you grew up in that area?
Yeah, I grew up, so we're right on the Washington border. So I kind of grew up in Washington for most of my, childhood, teen years. And then we moved over into Idaho. But I've been in this area my whole life. When Julius and I first got together, he owned a movie theater here. He'd owned a movie theater here for like 15 years or something like that. So there was no reason to relocate. And my family's here, of course. And then we had our child, and then, we started Method Canine. So now there's no reason to relocate. Everything's right here. So I don't appreciate the winters, but I also don't see us going anywhere.
Yeah, we just got back from Virginia, and Gregg's from Maryland.
Yeah.
And we just got back from Virginia, and man, those of you that live in the cold, and we have some really good friends that are breeders of Malinois up in Saskatchewan, and all these bundle up to go outside, scraping the ice off, black ice, all of that.
I don't appreciate it.
Yeah,
I like anything below 80 is just not my element, but it is what it is.
We train a ton of dogs, and we do bicycle rides all year round. Like we do, like bicycling is a big part of our pet training and the police dog training for us. I think it's necessary where we are, and I love it. And there's never a month that we can't do it. And somebody will call me, friends that we have in Virginia or Ohio, and they're like, hey, this dog is a little anxious, this and that. I'm like, hey, take it for a bike ride. They're like, dude, it's 40 below zero. I'm like, yeah, never mind.
Come on, where's the commitment? My trainers and I look like we came off Dumb and Dumber or something.
Yeah, put a sweater on that Frenchie and get going.
No, but there's limitations. Sometimes you'll see us even riding around in our training room here. I'd rather do that than a treadmill for the dog any day.
Sure.
But yeah, I get it.
So I know, it looks like on social media that you spend a lot of time with reactive dogs. And that's one of the things that we really value about your training is the information that you share about reactive dogs. Is that just kind of a path that you've gone down out of necessity? I mean, obviously you still teach sits and downs and recalls and all the normal stuff, but what got you neck deep in reactive dogs? Or is that just the online perception that's happening?
No, it's been that way really from the beginning. And I make the joke that I tell people, they're like, well, how did you get into this? And I said, I was dumb enough to be the one willing to stand in front of the dog over and over and over again. But really, when I was first really getting heavy into dog training and I was getting pretty big jobs at pretty big facilities, these bigger facilities kind of offer a lot of different things. So we had contracts where we had to fill, police canines. We had to fill, canines for security companies. So it's a breeding company that I work for, but it's also a pet store, and it's also a daycare, and it's also, a training center, and it's also, got hydrotherapy and physical therapy for the dogs and grooming, and like there's all these different avenues. And so I was the head trainer for a long time, and so I got to experience a lot of different things. And I remember one day just looking at one of the dogs that we had bred that we were, in the process of training for about a year to fulfill one of these contracts. And the dog, once they start figuring out who the decoy is and starting to figure out, like, they know, they start getting really worked up if they can even hear that guy's voice or they can smell him coming or anything like that. And I just remember, seeing them going psycho in their kennels because they knew something's going to happen because I can tell that this guy is in the room. And, that's cool and all. It was fun to be part of all that. It was fun to work the dogs through all that sort of stuff. But seeing, the dog just a handful of kennels down, same breed, freaking out for completely different reasons, and genuinely really struggling, not excited for any of this stuff, my heart went out to that dog. So even from very early on in my career, even if I didn't know how to deal with those kinds of dogs, I wanted to be first in line to help them. So I made a lot of stupid mistakes. I put myself in a lot of stupid positions. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to help them more than I wanted to help the police canine. Like the police canine, he's going to live a great life. He's going to get to do what he wants to do. He's going to get to retire, all that sort of stuff. He's got great genetics and everything kind of on his side. These other dogs, they just don't. They come from, backyard breeders. They come from, terrible life experiences. They come from shelters and rescues. And they're just a mess. And so that's where my heart went out. And ever since then, I became known, in our local area with all of our rescues and shelters, I became known as the trainer who was dumb enough to, she's going to be willing to go into the kennel with this dog. She's going to be willing to try to put a leash on this dog. She's going to be willing to take this dog out in public. She's going to be willing to work with this dog and whatever. And once that became kind of the theme, and then people saw that, our company was helping these dogs, then that became the niche at that point, is that's all that would come to us. And I would say probably the last 6 or 7 years, that's all that comes to us is reactivity aggression cases. Every once in a while, we'll get like a happy-go-lucky dog, and we genuinely really enjoy that. And it reminds us that there are good dogs out there. Sometimes I think we get it in our heads that all dogs are, problematic. Like Hope and I, we just traveled a little while back, and we were walking through a mall that was near our hotel. We were walking down the big aisle, and someone's got a Frenchie on a harness, and they're just hanging out in the mall. And Hope and I are walking. We make this big old U shape around this Frenchie because we're like, I ain't getting my ankle bit off walking past that thing. That's the way our mind is always working, because every Frenchie that we ever see is going to take your ankle off, that kind of thing. And
not Gregg's Frenchie.
No, she's a lover, dude.
So it just has been that way from the beginning. And like I said, it's mostly just because, just too stupid to know where I shouldn't have been. And then people just kept lining up and bringing these dogs to us. And then it was, soon it was dogs that were outside of our little town. And then it was dogs outside of our state. And then it was dogs, from the other end of the country, and then it was dogs from outside of the country. And now when people look up Method Canine, they very rarely say, I'm going to drive, across the country to Method Canine because I have this happy-go-lucky dog that I want her to train. They drive across the country because they have a dog that's in a pretty bad spot. So.
And were you just down? Did you just come and do something with Dr. Melanie? Did I see?
We didn't really get to do anything official. Hope and I were more on kind of a networking trip. We had the opportunity to go hang out with Michael, go hang out with Melanie. I'd never met either of them. Big fans of both of them, great respect for both of them. So it was a really good opportunity to go down there and kind of mingle and do stuff like that. So I only got to speak to her briefly, unfortunately, just kind of in a networking. It's
like some kind of dog Davos summit. Like all these great dog trainers are coming down. We missed it. We didn't get the invite.
Well, that's what I was saying. You came to mingle, and Gregg and I are 2 hours away, and we were not on the mingle list.
Oh goodness!
Yeah,
I do think it was more of a closed kind of thing. I'm very lucky that anyone even thought of my name to bring me, into that circle. So it was just a great experience just to put faces to names, get to know people a little bit more.
That place is becoming the Mecca. We were just talking to Michael about it on the last episode. And it's funny, like the less that he does now, the more people that are flocking there, more high level trainers that are flocking. It is the hub for a lot of what's going on in the dog world right now.
Michael Ellis's place. Oh yeah. I think it's been the hub since the beginning.
That's true. That's true. I think it's more publicly, social media again, right? Like we know who's there now, and we're, and especially with Cameron being there and Melanie living so close to there, it's just, it's pretty cool to see a lot of,
it's like the Silicon Valley for dogs.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Everybody's attracted to the bright green. I think that just brings them in.
Oh, they like the 60-degree weather in the middle of winter.
Oh, it was freezing while we were there.
Oh, was it? Did you bring?
It was absolutely freezing. Oh. Yes.
Well, it does get a little foggy sometimes.
It was as cold as what I left from almost. There was some points in the day where the sun came out and it got warmer, but we were inside most of the time, and it was cold in their building too. At Michael's place, it's like an old church type thing. Oh, it's cold in there too. So we had our coats on, we had multiple pairs of socks on, and we were like. So it was cold there. Yeah. I keep telling people, invite me warm places. I would love to go to warm places because it seems like every place I go.
San Diego would be where it's at.
Yeah.
We were asking, and this is kind of, there's a lot of handlers now that are, especially across the country, a little less in California, but even in California, who are like, hey, I'm learning. When I was a handler, you didn't learn a lot about operant condition, classical conditioning. You're like, hey, tell your dog what to do. If it doesn't do it, like yank harder.
Yeah.
So handlers are becoming a little more educated on how to actually train a dog, at least train their dog. And I think some of them are now looking at the path, that like I've taken to like, hey, you can leave this world and go into pet dog training, and it's fun, it's rewarding, it's lucrative, it's all the things that we would want to see from career number 2 or 3 or wherever they're going into. If you were to talk to a young handler who's really like, hey, I think I want to do something different down the line that involves dogs, what foundational information would you encourage them to seek out and really learn to build on? Because unfortunately, if they don't have a good trainer like Gregg who's talking to them about operant conditioning and classical conditioning and reward and all those kind of things, then they can go down the wrong path. But if you were going to give some advice to a young handler who might think about being a trainer later on, what kind of foundational information would you want them to have?
Yeah, I think understanding, how behavior works, what shifts it in either direction, I think is going to be the core of truthfully any avenue that you go into concerning dogs. Whether that's, you are doing, police, military, you're doing protection style, you're doing sport work, you're doing, service dog work, you're doing behavioral work, whatever. What moves the needle? And I think understanding the science behind what moves the needle is really important. And I want people to understand is that you don't always have to take, big, heavy courses and stuff like that. Google University is a real thing. It's a real thing, and it is incredibly valuable. You just have to have the desire and the passion to weed through a lot of things. And you have to have the desire and the passion to go work as many dogs as you can possibly touch. Anybody that's willing to let you touch their dog, any shelter or rescue that's willing to let you touch their dog, get out there and touch them and experiment and do, everything, apply everything that you can think of and really start learning behavior. If you don't know how to move that needle and you don't know, what moves that needle, you're going to be really, really lost. Then afterwards, you can say, okay, what am I doing that's inhibiting what I know moves the needle? And you're going to perfect your timing, of course. You're going to perfect your body language, of course, your leash language, your food work, all of that sort of stuff. That's how you come in and you help move that needle most effectively. We already know that rewards, we already know that classical conditioning, operant conditioning move those needles. We just need to know how to implement it in our own way where we're moving the needle most effectively for us. And I think if you can master that, then after that, it's just saying, okay, what's the new problem? And how do I apply all of the math skills that I have to solve this new problem, right? And it can be a behavioral case, or it can be, the dog is struggling in the protection sports in some way, or it can be the dog is struggling with service tasks in some way, and you're taking that core fundamental skills and you're saying, how do I shift them? How do I manipulate them? How do I adapt them to this problem to move the needle where I need it to go for this specific dog? And I think that's it's what it comes down to. If you master your fundamentals, a lot of dog training beyond that, the high level dog training, is actually a lot easier than it looks.
Hey, I'd like to thank one of our sponsors, Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been engineering tactical and working dog equipment like harnesses, collars, leashes for military, police for over 75 years. They are continuously innovating. I always like to say, this is not your dad's Ray Allen. They are always looking for the bigger and the better. We get all of our handlers now in the basic handler course deal directly with Ray Allen. We get our harnesses, leashes, tugs, e-collars, gloves, Rec Specs, Hearing Dog Pro. All of our good stuff comes from Ray Allen Manufacturing. Look them up, rayallen.com. I cannot recommend them enough. We only recommend people that we deal with, and these are good people, and they're in it for the right reasons. So because of that, rayallen.com. Yeah, we hear that all the time. As far as mastering the fundamentals. Right?
Yeah, and that's what you talk about all the time. Like all the beginners want to do some really high level stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the high level trainers, handlers out there are always working on foundational stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where social media sucks, right? Like, did you see that Malinois walking on the tightrope, and then it backed up and it did
doing
a hand
pull-ups and then
and it's like, what? Does your dog know how to sit comfortably? Well, no, but watch it on the tightrope. It's it's really solid. I'm like, okay, that's where social media can kind of lead us down a path. And we talked about it before. I can make all dogs look really good with a whole bunch of deleting of the bad stuff, right? Like, ooh, do it again. Like, the dog doesn't look happy. The dog doesn't look engaged.
Yep.
Delete that one until we have her. Oh, look at that. The dog looks really happy. That's perfect. Let's send that one out into the universe and show everybody what a great trainer we are. And then all the while we've deleted 80% of the stuff that doesn't look comfortable.
Or the reactivity stuff, right? You're like, look at this dog. He's trying to kill everybody. Look, 2 sessions. Look at how beautiful it is. We're downtown. It's doing everything right. It's like, wait a minute. There's a lot that
something
happened in between.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about your journey with these reactive dogs, Stephanie. Like, so you had to learn a lot along the way, because it sounds like you just kind of jumped into it and then you were like kind of learning as you went. Right. Yeah. Like for our handlers out there, and we were talking about, God, I can't remember, it was like the 4 L's, right?
Yeah, we got one of them.
Look, lock, trying to predict when they're going to be, reactive with another dog and when to catch them. Like, can you just tell us some epiphanies you've had along the way, or maybe things you did early on that you're like, we really had to pivot and do some different things, just something for our handlers that might be facing this. And there are a lot of police dogs out there that, in the selection process, they didn't pick up that the dog was reactive, and it becomes a real pain with a police dog, because you're going into other backyards and there's other dogs, and something that you kind of learned along the way.
Well, one of the things that I did not appreciate at the time, but actually I think made me a much better dog trainer is, I told you I worked for large facilities, filling all different kinds of contracts, running board and trains, running private sessions, group classes. At a lot of the places that I worked, money was the most important thing. So as the trainer, I didn't get any fancy equipment. I had no muzzles. I had, a collar, I had a leash, and I had a treat bag. And I had to train every dog, whether it was 2 pounds or 200 pounds, on all of the same equipment. And I didn't have people helping me. I didn't have assistants. I didn't have any of that. So I tell my staff all the time that I learned dog body language really fast by riding bareback. And it forces you to learn it really, really fast. I said, but I won't do that to you because I like my insurance company and I want them to keep me. But if you want to do it on your own time, that's the best possible way to become a better trainer. And so I really like the idea of going and working at shelters and rescues. One, they're not going to give you any equipment. They're not going to even, half of them are not going to let you put equipment on dogs, right? You're going to get a slip lead, or you're going to get a harness and a leash, and you're going to be taking all sorts of different dogs out. the more dogs that you can touch, the more often you can be in situations where they might be fearful or they might be reactive or they might, be redirecting on you or something like that. The more situations that you can put yourselves in, the easier that becomes to predict. And now I'm thinking of you guys, they're like way bigger than me, way stronger than me. I make the joke that I can bench press a box of tissues. Maybe you don't have to pay as close of attention to stuff like that. But I had to learn very, very quickly when a dog was going to do various behaviors because I have to brace myself with all my might to make sure that I can handle the behavior that's coming. But I think nothing will ever prepare you more in life than touching as many dogs as you can possibly touch. Get out to the shelters and rescues. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be incredibly thankful for you. They're going to have stipulations on how you can train their dogs. A lot of places are going to say you have to train pure positive. A lot of places are going to say that you have to use the equipment that they provide you with. A lot of places are going to say that you have to go through their training courses to become a volunteer, et cetera. Do it. Jump through all of those hoops. Learn how to train phenomenally well, pure positive. Learn how to use every tool that anybody can hand you and get the best results you can with that dog. Learn how to read behavior by taking, 1,000 dogs a year out that are all different temperaments, different ages, different sizes, and you will get very, very good at reading dog behavior. And coincidentally, when you're really good at reading dog behavior, you get much better about your body language as well and your behavior, because it definitely dictates much of what the dog is going through.
Or if you don't get better at it, then you might realize that
you will know.
Maybe retail's for you.
Yeah, maybe this is not your jam, maybe. But I think I think the dogs are the best teachers. Everyone always wants to know, like, who did you learn from and where did you get the most value? And it's like the dogs are what taught me the most. And I was blessed from the very beginning of my career, from the moment that I blinked my eyes and I said that I want to get into dog training. I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dogs pass under my fingertips every year by working in shelters, having prolific board and train programs under my belt, group classes, private sessions, police contracts. Like, it's just been nonstop dogs since I started. Without that, if I was training 2 dogs at a time, training 15 dogs a year in board and train, 20 dogs a year in board and train, and it was kind of all spaced out, boy, is it going to take a lot longer to put all those pieces together. So touch as many dogs as you can. I
want to hit on that too, because I think this is important. 2 things in the horse world. I was horses before I was dogs. It was wet saddle blankets, right? It didn't matter who was teaching you, like, get on and ride and get on that other one and ride and go far and go long and go up hills and go down hills and turn and, just get on the horse and ride. Like, cowboys don't become cowboys after taking a class, right? It's like, get on the horse and ride it until it stops trying to get you off its back, and then figure out how to be delicate and, have that really good communication. But the first thing you need to do is figure out what the horse is trying to do to you, where it's trying to go, all the problems it's having. And I think for us, before we bring a trainer on, at the very least, they have to be a kennel tech, but we've stolen a whole lot of trainers from our local shelters. We steal the kennel techs first. We steal them from shelters. They're doing great there. We know there's a lot of things that they're not allowed to do, and we know that they don't know the dogs that are coming in, and they have to go in there and get the dog out of the kennel and take it out to the play yard, and they don't, you learn how to keep yourself safe, and that all comes from, like you're saying, like, watch the language of the dog, watch what you're doing. If every time you go in there a dog's trying to attack you, that might be a you problem, especially if nobody else is having that problem in the shelter. And so you really have to, like, hey, Chris, why is that dog nice to you and he's not nice to me? And then Chris will tell you, like, the success that he's having in that situation, and then you try and build on that. But I think this is important because now, with the availability as dog training as a career, there's a lot of people that come into, I assume, a facility like yours or ours and say, hey, I want to make dog trainer money, and I took a couple classes online and I'm ready to go. Can I get those big dog training dollars right now? And our answer is, you can grab a mop, and then you can move a whole bunch of boarding dogs around, and I want to see, like, do you show up to work on time? Are you cool with your coworkers? Is every dog you touch trying to come up the leash? Are you afraid of every dog that's coming out of the kennel because you think we need to work with your communication with dogs that aren't being trained, that haven't been trained, before we even let you touch a dog that a client is paying good money to have trained and have you ruin it because your body language is just way off track.
I think we have this very flawed way of thinking. Maybe I should just say younger trainers in the industry, is that they have to learn all about dog training and then go train dogs. They I mean, some of the trainers that come study under me have more education than I ever got, right? As far as like sit down curriculum and schools and courses, and like none of that was available when I was a young trainer. And I think we have to remember is that if you want to get good at dog training, you're not going to just be at the top. You're not just going to walk in and be at the top. And I don't care how much book knowledge you have, you're not going to walk in and be at the top. You have to go touch dogs. So if I was going to approach you for a job or I was going to do anything, I'd be happy to push the mop bucket around, but you better bet every spare moment that I had, I'd be down at the shelter, touching as many dogs as I can, working as many dogs as I can, so that I'm actually getting the education, because book smarts and street smarts are two different things. And until they really combine and mesh, you're not going to have a shot at being one of those higher trainers.
Yeah. So we got a lot of new handlers out there, and some of them are potentially going to go out and select a dog. I'm sure you've got now this like sixth sense with dogs where you see a dog and you can almost start kind of, reading the body language before, the average person. Can you give our listeners just some things that you're going through in your mind as far as what you're looking for in a dog? And, have you seen dogs that have even fooled you where you get them out and they seem completely fine and then something triggers them and they come up the line? Or are you like pretty sure right from the get-go, like, okay, I've got this dog's number. They're not really surprising you. You kind of able to read the potential hazards coming up.
It's a little different with every situation. I would say that if the dog is comfortable in their environment, meaning that they've been in that environment for a while, you're more often than not going to get what you see. But if the dog is in a new environment, so for instance, you're meeting a dog for the first time out at a park for a private session, or you're getting a dog dropped off to you for a board and train program or something like that, and the dog is in a new environment, very often they kind of kick into a survival mode where they're kind of piecing the puzzle together more than they are very quick to respond to different things. So we usually see behaviors that are a little disingenuous from the dog. So you might have a dog that's truly a basket case that's really reserved when it's in a new environment, because it's really trying to figure out, am I safe here? And who's in charge here? And who controls the resources here? And how tough are you, Steph? You don't look very big, that kind of thing. And they're kind of piecing those things together. And then you might have other dogs that are absolutely psycho when they get into a new environment, but you let them settle in, they're actually really good dogs, right? So we can get these kind of false positives and negatives from dogs when they're in a new environment. If it's an environment that they're pretty comfortable with, let's say they've been in the shelter for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, they've been there for a while, very often what you see is what you get. So you can, you usually are going to get similar behaviors to what you see in the kennel, similar behaviors to what you see from people who handled the dog in the beginning, but maybe now they have a relationship with. You should expect what they got in the beginning, that kind of thing. So familiarity with their surroundings plays a really big deal in the behaviors that you're going to get. I find that dogs typically are untrue to what their typical core behaviors are when they're in a newer environment. I would say that when you are in the environment that they are comfortable with, 9 times out of 10, what you're reading along the way is probably what they're going to funnel out to you. So even if you picked up a dog somewhere, you picked them up from the shelter or whatever, and then you brought them somewhere, you should anticipate the behaviors that you brought them out into to be different than what you saw at the shelter, right? That there should be a shift. Every time there's a new environment for the dog, there should be a shift. So anytime you're in a new environment, you should really, really be on your toes and not assume that you know exactly where that dog is going, because it can really shift at any time.
This is probably one of the flaws we have with our system is like, hey, you go to the dog broker and we're going to get this dog. And then, hey, handler, here's your new dog. May have never owned a damn dog in his life. Now take him home to this new environment and put him in the kennel, and we're going to meet in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the industry in a lot of places. How long do you see the dog? And I know this, we're talking generalities, they're all different, but for a dog to kind of start to become comfortable in their environment, kind of a semi-normal dog, you know, are we looking at a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, before you go, hey, you're seeing the true dog and now he's kind of gotten comfortable with his environment and you can start getting comfortable with you?
It's, you know, I think it's different for every dog. I would usually say between 30 and 90 days, I would say every dog is going to show you their true colors. I usually find that when it comes to matters of prey drive and things like that, I would say those behaviors come out a lot sooner. We start seeing, you know, reactivity from prey drive. We start seeing, you know, chasing things from prey drive, frustration from prey drive, redirection from prey drive. We start seeing those a lot earlier because I don't think those behaviors are as complex as when you start getting into more of the defensive behaviors, specifically territorial behaviors. I feel like territorial behaviors take the longest to come out, one, because they have to develop kind of the feel for territory and the desire to claim territory in a new area. But two, I also feel like those dogs are the most calculated when it comes to things. So this is going to be like resource guarders and things like that. And maybe even some of your fearful, anxious dogs, but usually you see that pretty early on, right? You see that. But when it comes to aggression or reactivity, you're going to have territorial components that come in. And I say those dogs can sometimes be the ones that take a lot longer to show you their true colors. And that's one of the reasons my board and trains for dogs like that are much longer, like an 8-week program, because I don't even get to really see who the dog is until we're about 4 weeks in.
That's
and then they really start showing us.
Frequently we have that conversation at the facility because the dog will come in that we know has been a big problem at home.
Yep.
And then you know, the trainer's like, this dog's great. Like, what? There's nothing wrong with this dog. This dog. And then the honeymoon ends, right? And usually for us, we'll start to see it at week 2, week 3. And for us, a human aggression case is 5, 6, 7 weeks or 8 weeks. And we're like, yeah, don't sleep on this dog, right? Like, because it's going to start to get comfortable. And it's like, hey, I was visiting, but now this is home. Now I'm going to treat it like it's home. And once they start to think that it's home, then we get to see the home behaviors. And sometimes we never see it because we're not the owners and we don't do the stuff that the owners do. But if we're going to see a dog and we know it's got a pretty decent bite history and it's done some nasty stuff outside of the place, a lot of times either we see it on minute 1, or if we don't see it on the first day, then we won't see it for weeks. The ones where we see it on the first day, then we know what we have, and you know, we're like, everybody keep their.
I like dogs that they show you all their cards right away.
Yeah, that's pleasant because then we know what we're dealing with. It's the one that's like, man, this dog's bit 7 people and it's shown us nothing.
Seems so nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Seems as sweet as can be. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just.
Well, I think that also shows just how critically important it is to be fair with your training from the very start. You're always fair. You're always clear with this dog, because you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's bubbling up. You don't know what the true heart of this dog is. And if you've been very fair all along the way, it makes that blow up significantly smaller. But if you know, on the first day we're a little bit cautious, but then you were like, well, I can leash you now and I can manhandle you a little bit. You're gonna tolerate that, and then you get into week 2, and the dog switches gears and says, now I'm going to go after you. Well, now the dog has no respect for you. The dog has no trust in you. The dog knows that you're completely unfair. You're going to have a much bigger problem at that point when that dog finally does act out on what it wants to act out on. So I think fairness in the beginning, whether you see the behaviors or not, is incredibly important.
We talk about like building a rapport, right? Like, I don't know what you're going to do, so I'd rather you.
I love the equation. Discipline without rapport equals rebellion.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So we're really big on the, come on out. And initially we're just.
That's funny. We say it over here. Rules without relationship create rebellion.
Okay.
The triple R's.
Same thing. Triple R's. Yeah, yours probably easy to remember.
Have you noticed, and some of this we're seeing it a lot here. I can't imagine that it's not affecting you guys, but it's not just a behavioral issue. There's some really screwed up genetics, and I'll pick on Cane Corso. I'll pick on Corsos right now because we're seeing a bundle of nerve bag Corsos that are coming from backyard breeders or breeders that should be backyard breeders, I guess, that are, showing themselves as being good breeders, and they're just not. And the dogs are horrendous. We see it in some of the shepherds. We're seeing it in quite a few Rottweilers. We're seeing it in a lot of Corsos. And then, of course, a lot of, mutts that come from the shelters. But as far as like breeds, for us right now, the Corsos are leading the list on they're just sketchy and there's no real reason why they're like, we're seeing it as puppies. We're seeing them as adolescents. We're seeing it as adults. And so it's not like, it's a nature versus nurture thing. Like these guys are coming out of the womb problematic.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that a lot where genetics are really just a problem and you're just kind of trying to manage the dog as best you can, teach as much as you can, but you're still up against a genetic wall that's kind of keeping you from finding the success that you want to find in training?
Yeah. And that there's genetics are, you can't rewire the dog. Unfortunately, no different than you and I. I can't rewire the fact that, maybe cancer runs in your family or diabetes runs in your family. I can't rewire that in you. That's your genes. So what I always talk to people about is one of the first things that we need to do in evaluating a dog and deciding, how far they can go in a program is the first thing that we need to understand is how deep is their deficit. Right. So if we have a dog that's got terrible genetics, but has had a really good upbringing, all right, well, our deficit is the genetics and we can move that needle so much. Right. And then a lot of it after that is management. But if you have a dog that, they've got terrible genetics, they had a terrible upbringing, they missed so much of their formative development and stuff like that, then we have a really, really big deficit. And then we have to say, how far can we move the needle, right? When they miss really important critical milestones, just think of feral children. I always explain, I always equate the two together. If you look at feral children, when they're found 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, they've lost so much capacity for speech. They've lost so much capacity for understanding human emotion, for understanding social situations, and they don't get that back. They might be able to recover it to a certain extent, but they don't get it back. So we need to look at how deep is the deficit, and then we need to be realistic with the client is how close are we going to get to be to that golden retriever who walks itself through the park, carries its own leash and is just chill with everything. That deficit is bigger and bigger, right? And then we have to take into consideration what the breed was bred for, right? On top of genetics, on top of, development and all of these other things. So some people, you get into training and you realize it's not a genetic issue. Most of this was learned, right? Because your training just takes off. These are the cases that every dog trainer wants to post. Where it makes them look like they're God or something like that, right? They took this just crazy out of control dog and then now the dog is amazing. Yeah, that's because most of it was learned behavior and it was often learned after those real formative periods, right? And so changing it isn't all that difficult, okay? But if you get a dog that was, a genetic mess taken from the mother at 2 weeks old, that's been resource guarding since 6 weeks old, and has all of these issues, that's not going to be that cute little before and after that you thought you were going to film. That's not that 3-week board and train that you were going to switch around, right? What more likely is it's a long board and train that's just getting the ball rolling for the owners. The owners are going to have to become highly educated, continue working this dog for the rest of its life, and the dog's going to kind of be on a maintenance schedule. And over time, you'll see that deficit get smaller and smaller, and never be perfect, obviously, but you'll see it get smaller and smaller. So it's a long haul idea that you're looking at when it comes to training a dog with genetic deficits, because you're not going to undo it. But can you get the dog to a much better spot where they respond in a much different way? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot more time than if it was just learned behavior that happened over time that was advantageous to the dog that you kind of undid. It's going to take significantly longer for that dog to relearn, and they're eventually going to hit a cap, and that's where management comes into play. But you have to be realistic about that with your clients, that when they come in with serious dogs, it's a serious commitment. I actually had one client that said, the only complaint I had about your program, Steph, is how much homework we had to do, how much videos we had to watch, how much stuff we had to learn. She goes, we're not looking to be professional dog trainers. And I was like, yeah, but with the dog that you have to become one in order for that dog to remain safe within your community, your family, et cetera. In order for you to have this dog long-term, you're going to have to reach that level of education to be able to do it. So yeah, genetics makes a really, really big difference.
Once again, this episode is brought to you by Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. There's only one brand of dog food that we use and recommend. That is Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. Inukshuk was created for working dogs and continues to be the top choice for all working dogs, from hunting dogs to sled dogs, and of course, police canines. Whether it be detection or patrol canines, visit inukshukpro.com, or you can find all of the formulas on chewy.com. Yeah, and I think you're right. And a lot of clients, a lot of dog owners, they want to see the best in their dog, right? Just like kids, just like, it's spouses, all that. Like I want to see, or I only see the best in my dog. And can't you just fix it? One of the things I really like from, it's the Sit, Stay, Learn video that you put out on reactivity, and how much you talk about advocating for dogs. And I think, especially in our state, it's so necessary, because everybody, and I don't know if it's the same way up there, but everybody here assumes that if they have a dog, it's their God-given right to let their dog meet your dog. If they love dogs, it's their God-given right for them to touch your dog.
Yep.
And if you don't let your dog be accosted by them, then you're an asshole. Like it's, and we get owners, and I feel bad for them. They're just sweet people who feel incredibly guilty for not letting people touch their dog. And somebody will say, I love dogs. Can I pet your dog? And the owner sure as heck knows that that's not going to go well. And then they get stuck in like, but I didn't want to tell them no. And then the next thing that happens is their dog bites somebody. Totally preventable. Obviously the person that's accosting them, it would be nice if we could educate everybody to like, hey, stay back, but we can't, right? Like that ball is already rolled, but we can do what you do and say, I'm going to step in between my dog, who is on the bubble of trying to get euthanized, and advocate for my dog, so my dog learns to trust me.
Yeah, that's tough conversations. Anytime I have an opportunity to try to equate it to people, I do that. I always try to kind of put it in a human perspective, because
Children.
we seem to understand that better. Not even a kid perspective here, but I liken it to celebrities. Why do you think celebrities, every time they get out of a car and they're just trying to go into their house, or they're just trying to get into the restaurant that they're going into, they're covering their faces, they're trying to push the paparazzi away, they're trying to grab their spouse or do whatever, and sometimes you see them even blow up at the paparazzi and like, get out of my face. It's because the fame part of being rich and famous is awful. They have no privacy. They can't go anywhere without someone up their butt about something, right? You hear them talk about it in movies. You hear them talk about it in interviews. Like I remember there's like, I don't know, there's like an interview with like Eminem or it's in one of his songs where he's talking about, I can't even go to the bathroom with people, asking me for an autograph while I'm in the stall going to the bathroom, right? Yeah. You see how these celebrities are at their wits' end, right?
And they have the ability to reason, right? Yeah. They can reason through that. They understand why. The dog is like,
imagine your dog just living in a fishbowl that's just constantly on display, and has no say about it. Eventually they're going to be over it, right? That they don't want that. And that's why dogs in other countries typically do a lot better than they do in America. We're very selfish here. But when you go into other countries and you see stray dogs and stuff like that, most people don't bother them. Most people just kind of let them go, which is why you see other countries, they talk about, we don't put dogs on leashes. We don't put dogs in crates. We don't do all these things because they're not oogling them. Is that a word? I just made that a word, okay?
Yeah. We know what you meant.
We're picking up what you're
saying. People are not all over them everywhere they go. You look at the stray dogs, you go down to Mexico, you look at the stray dogs, just chill. Just chill. They're not flipping out over every little thing that happens. They're chill because they're not the center of attention all the time. But we've elevated dogs to a status here that they were never meant to be elevated to, and they don't want to be elevated to. They just want to blend in with everybody else, and we refuse to allow them to do that here. We would have, next to no behavioral issues if people just did that. If they just treated them like they were not property, but treated them like they were just part of the scenery. They were just a part of the environment, and they just gave them their piece. We'd have so many fewer behavioral problems.
It's one of the things, like when we're doing a group class of dogs that have all graduated, and we bring them out for, we call it a drop-in class, and we'll do, it's like a scrambler is what I call it. Like we give a small space and everybody kind of walks through all the dogs on their own. And that's my thing. Like, don't look at the dog. Don't focus on the other dog. Look at the horizon and pretend that dog doesn't exist. And we're talking about, like, we have a lot of reactive and aggressive dogs. And once people stop looking at the dogs and stop focusing on the dogs and they just look to where they're going, lo and behold, the dogs stop looking at the dogs and the dogs stop being defensive. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe my dog did that. Because you've spent your whole life saying, how are you going to be? What are you going to do? And they're, like giving these dogs all this ability to, or thought that they can think their way through this, and giving them way too much credit. And it's really enlightening and powerful for the owners when they figure that out, that they do have the power to say, no, you can't touch my dog, he's in training, or no, my dog can be aggressive, and stand in front of their dog. And they're like, oh my God, I did that after going home after this lesson or this board and train or whatever. And my dog didn't even look at that person. And before it would have been this issue. Yeah. But before you would have said, yeah, go ahead and pet him. Or like, he might be. And we have clients that say that all the time. He's bitten before, but you can try. What the hell?
And then who goes in for the pet after that?
Well, a lot of people. A lot of people, and it's just, and I think you're right. I think it's just entitlement.
Yeah. It's like, I got my dog at home I can pet. I don't need to pet everybody. But, we see the same thing, too, with police dogs. Where the dog is not social, does not want to be pet, recognized, looked at, but works great with cover. Because covers, they're responsible for their own areas and their own thing, and the dog goes between the legs and works just great. So it's.
And the handler will tell him, like, hey, you're not going to come over and pet him. You're not going to engage with him. Like, he's going to listen to me. But if you ignore him, he'll work great in this group environment. Mm-hmm. And, we're able to do that with a dog that loves to put teeth on people. But we can't get some of our owners and our citizens in our own communities to just leave dogs alone.
Yeah. We definitely live in a society that wants to feel good, and they want to feel good immediately. And that's why we have fast food and Netflix on demand and tons of, processed treats everywhere. And we jump from relationship to relationship when things get hard. And we pet every dog that we see is because we want to feel good instantaneously. And unfortunately, the dogs suffer for it.
One of the main reasons that, and we're almost an hour into this, I knew this was going to be a good one for us, but one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring you on is because there's a lot of handlers we talked about in the beginning that are thinking about becoming dog trainers. And you're one of the few places in the nation that offer a comprehensive train the trainer class. Can you talk about that and kind of where that's developed and how that looks, for like, say a handler gets ready to retire, or they're getting out and they're like, hey, I want to be a dog trainer. I could go work for a trainer and, go up the process, or I could take this path and go to Method and learn how to be a trainer from step 1 through 4. In your case, can you talk about that?
Yeah. So we've been training other trainers since 2019. So this would have been 7 years. And actually, a funny story, the first trainer that came to my Train the Trainer was Hope, who's my head trainer. 7 years ago. She was the first one who ever signed up. So we started Train the Trainer programs back then. And I would say within the last 4 years, it was probably half the business that we did. I was running programs of about 25, 30 students, like 5 or 6 times a year, 7 times a year. And so it was becoming just a huge, huge thing. And then we had, obviously, our board and train programs and everything going on in the background. And it got to a point where our board and trains were booked a year and a half out. And that's stressful enough as it is. But the kind of phone calls that we get on a daily basis make it significantly more stressful. I wish I could say that we got, I need my puppy trained. They're peeing in my house and it's driving me nuts kind of emergency phone call, but we don't get that. We get the phone calls that, if you can't help my dog's going to have to be put down. I get those phone calls all the time, and it's devastating Because what I hear on the other end of the phone is a good dog, that just needs help, is a good family who wants to help, is a good family who's ready to put in the time and the money and the effort to save this dog. And I have to tell them, I can't help you for a year, right? I can help you with private sessions. I can help you any way that I can. I can do Zoom sessions with you, but you're in Florida, you're in New York City, you're in Australia. I mean, I can do as much as I can, but I can't necessarily take your dog on right now. And so my husband and I had to sit down. I gave the phone calls all to him because my heart breaks every single time I get a phone call like that. And I'm the kind of person that'll be like, I don't need sleep. Send your dog to me.
I'll be right there. Yeah.
I will work your dog over the night. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'll make sure that your dog is okay. So eventually I had to give the phone calls over to my husband because I was like, if you leave it up to me, one, like my compassion fatigue is just going to go through the absolute roof. We're going to have dogs coming out of our noses, aggressive dogs at any which direction. And I said, and it's really just not going to be good for anybody. So we started kind of hitting a brick wall here. And I said, well, you know, we're doing train the trainer. We're teaching people, and to an extent, what we do. The behavioral work that we do, but I'm not holding them to any kind of standard. They're kind of just absorbing the information and then they're on their way. And I talked to Julius about it and I said, we could make this something that's much, much bigger. We could make this something that is fleshed out to the fullest extent of what it is that we do in great detail, so that if people want to study behavioral work, which I recommend for everybody, regardless of the avenue of dog training you want to go into, but we can test them. We can work with them hands-on. We can make sure that they are equipped to do what we can do. And then the next time I get that call, I don't have to tell them I'm booked a year out. I can say, we have this trainer over here. I know they know our system backwards and forwards. And we have this trainer over here and this trainer over here and this trainer over here. It's different to recommend someone like that than it is to recommend a company that you like. You've seen their online stuff. It looks good. Their before and afters look good. They seem like they have the same methodology, ideologies that you have, and then refer someone. That's hard too, because you don't always know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't always know those people on a much deeper level, so that's very challenging. So we started the Method Canine Institute, which is a school for people looking to become dog trainers, or people who are already dog trainers that just really want to dive much deeper into behavioral work, because sometimes it's hard to find all that information in one spot. Sometimes it can be years and years of searching, you know, all different places. But to have it all in one spot is, I would have, you know, sawed off my right arm when I was a young trainer for a program like that. But anyway, the programs, we have levels 1 through 4 certifications that people can get. You'd be certified through the Method Canine Institute. And the whole purpose of this is to train you in our system from start to finish, and know that you are not only knowledgeable, you're not only book smart, but you are street smart as well. So the first 3 certifications are available completely online. It sounds like it's an easy thing. It's not. There's over 120 hours worth of footage just in those. There's written testing, and then you have to submit videos, extensive videos of you working with various dogs on various skills that we want to see. So it's not going to be something that you're just going to take in a few weeks and you'll be done with. I'd say the average for each certification right now for students is probably 6 to 9 months for each certification. Then we have the master level certification, which is an in-person certification. And that's where we really, really fine tune your in-person handling skills. By the time you get there and you've gone through the first 3, you have to do them in order, but by the time you've gone through the first 3, you're already a pretty good handler. And then that's where we really fine tune, you know, your timing, your body language, reading dog body behavior and things like that. And what's great is we have awesome relationships with the rescues around us. So, you know, a couple weeks before the program, I shuttle in a ton of dogs and we work with all sorts of different dogs with different behavioral issues and things like that. People can bring their own dogs. If they have client dogs, they can bring all of them. And it really becomes a huge learning moment to see so many different dogs with so many different temperaments, and really working with them hands-on, that becomes really valuable. And so the programs, you know, we have payment plans for people. We have GI Bill reimbursement for people. You know, really everything that people could need. And then the courses don't just cover dog training. They teach you how to start your own business. They teach you how to run various programs like boarding trains, group classes, private sessions. They teach you about public speaking. They teach you so many different things that you're going to need to know in order to be successful. Because we don't just want you to be a good dog trainer. We also want you to be a successful business so you can have your own career in this. And we try to give people every single opportunity to do that.
And at the end of that, if I'm correct in this, then you provide kind of a directory for people who are coming to you or like, hey, we have a level 4 trainer that's in this city, in this state, and we can't take your dog, but that's where they should go. Yes.
So we have a map available of all of our students that are studying. As soon as they graduate, the information gets updated. People can look for trainers in their area. Phone calls that come directly to us. If we can't take them at the time, we make direct referrals to those trainers. And then another thing that we have is regardless of what level you're in, you get live monthly coaching from us. So you can tune into that every single month, even after you graduate. So if you say, Steph, I'm taking my first human aggression case to this week, I want to make sure that I have all my questions. I can watch you do demonstrations over and over again. I can tune into this live monthly coaching that's all included in the certification program. We've said from the very beginning, we do not want you to go to our school, pay a ton of money, get a piece of paper, and then you're just another name in our directory. We want to be your school for life, the people that you're constantly coming back to help you grow in your career and reach the level of success that you're looking for.
And how do they reach out to you? What's the best way to find information on Method Canine?
They can go to institute.methodcanine.com. That's where you'll pretty much see all of our services. You can see the certifications. And if you're not really sure you want to do the certifications, you want to learn more about us, how we teach, do things like that, we have smaller online classes. We have a subscription page that you can sign up for real cheap. It's like $12 a month. You can sign up for that. And we have hundreds and hundreds of tutorials on there that you could go through if you just want to get your feet wet. If you're looking into the certifications and you have questions, you can always email us at info@methodcanineinstitute.com. Ask any questions that you need. If you need financial assistance, we have, like I said, we have a million and different ways to help you with financial assistance. So don't hesitate to reach out, even if it's something you're not going to sign up for until next year. Reach out, start asking your questions now, start building a relationship with us, and we're going to take very good care of you.
Awesome. We really appreciate you coming on. We hit the hour mark, and like I said, I knew it was going to be the case. I feel like we could just keep talking, and it's really good to get information from somebody who's taken the path that you've taken. And I appreciate the fact that you're honest about the fact that the best way to learn to work with dogs is working with dogs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
truthfully, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a good information for the classes that you offer too, because we've seen other places that offer certifications that require no work with dogs, which seems absurd. And that's why, like, if you come to us and you have certain certifications, like we're still handing you a mop. If you had a method certification, that would be a whole different situation. So I appreciate the fact that working with dogs is a requirement, because somehow there's other places that just don't require that, which is odd. So thank you for taking the time to come on and visit with us. I know, we're Police Canine Radio, and the thought is, we just deal with that side, but like we always say, dogs are dogs, and the behaviors are very similar. And like your foundation of working, in a large facility where there was military dogs and police dogs and detection dogs and all of that, the reality is at the end of the day is that they're all dogs.
They're all dogs. They all learn the same way. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. In the meantime,
thank you. Train hard
and be safe.